2020 presidential race is still way too close to call. 270 electoral votes are needed to win. We just had CNN calling the state of Michigan for Biden. Of course, we are closely following what AP is telling us. So as it stands with AP, 6 states, they have not called Michigan yet. 6 states still have yet to be called. Of course, many of them being those key swing states. So for more on this, we want to bring in Tom Steyer. He's one of the candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for president, also a businessman and philanthropist. And Tom, it's great to have you on the program. Just want to get your thoughts just on the race and what we're seeing play out today with the election still too close to call at this point.
Well, I think that there is a clear path for the Biden-Harris ticket to win. And I think it's absolutely necessary for our democracy and for trust in our democracy that every vote be counted, just as Joe Biden is demanding. But I think it's quite clear right now that the Biden-Harris ticket expects to win. And as somebody who was an investor for 30 years and used to looking at numbers, I think that they can count, and they're right.
Tom, it's Adam Shapiro. Good to have you here. We know that the Trump campaign is now going to mount legal battles to stop the counting. Any insight as to, how the Biden campaign is going to argue in court to prevent the counting from being stopped?
Look, I have complete confidence in the Biden-Harris campaign. It is not a surprise at all that Donald Trump would sue to overcome a Democratic election that he lost. In fact, he said he was going to do it. People have been predicting that he would do it for weeks, if not months. But I think it's really important to remember that we have one candidate who's insisting on counting votes and for democracy to be preserved. And we have one candidate who's trying everything he can to stop democracy in its tracks. I said from the beginning, there couldn't be 2 more different candidates, and we're seeing that play out after all the votes have been cast.
And Tom, going off of that, this is such a deeply divided country. We have 2 opposing realities when we take a look at what's transpiring, what's happening right now in the U.S. Do you think that this is an inflection point? Is that safe to say?
Well, I do. And I'll tell you, Shauna, there's so many different ways to think about that inflection point. The first one is, if you listen to what Joe Biden just said, he said, I ran as a Democrat, but I'm going to serve as an American. And I think that that was an absolutely important point. He is someone who's trying to heal, to unify, to bring together, which is always what he said he was going to do, and now he's doing it. That couldn't be more different from what Mr. Trump has done in his original campaign, in his 4 years as president, or what he's doing at this very second. And I think, I give Joe Biden an enormous amount of credit for what he said today, because what he really did was from the beginning say, I'm going to represent every single American the same, regardless of whether or not they voted for me.
Tom, I want you to listen to something that the billionaire investor Ray Dalio told our Julia LaRoche at our All Markets Summit just recently about the polarization in the United States. And then I want to get your comments on the backside.
I'm not optimistic that we can get there, but I do know that we can get there if people are fearful of the consequences of not getting there. I believe that if you study history and you see what civil wars can be like, and you realize that you could have a civil war, don't take it for granted that you don't, and you see that when people put winning and getting their way above all else so that they will distort truth, that they will cheat rules, and that they will be violent with each other because that winning is of paramount importance, that the whole suffers greatly and it affects everybody adversely. So, I do think we're in a mindset in which not everybody, but I think the greatest problem of our time is people are passionately attached to their opinions and are not able as well to go through the thoughtful disagreement of how to get past those disagreements and do things well together.
Tom, what do you think?
Look, I think what Ray was saying has a lot of truth to it. But I also go back to Shauna's question of 2 minutes ago, which is this: Joe Biden is not doing that. Joe Biden is actually doing the opposite of that. He's talking about people having civil discourse, and what the actions and behavior of the president of the United States are incredibly significant to everybody across this country. And when we see a president behave well, that is a signal to our better angels for us all to behave well. When he says, listen to each other, come together, have discourse, that is a message to everybody, Democrat, Republican, and independent. And when a president does the opposite, which Mr. Trump unquestionably did, then that sends a different message about divisiveness and anger and, real deep dislike is the nicest word I can use for it. So I view this as the inflection point that Shauna was really asking about, that in fact, how a president behaves pushes us forward. And I really expect the Biden-Harris ticket to behave the right way for the rest of us to pick up on that and to really have the coming together that Ray Dalio is saying is our biggest question. Well, I think what Joe Biden did today was fantastic. That's our biggest question. That was a huge step forward.
So, Tom, how do you actually see this playing out if Joe Biden wins? How will Donald Trump leave office? I mean, there's a chance he will hang on to that chair and get pulled out by the Secret Service, right?
Look, I take my confidence from what Joe Biden said today, which is, this is the will of we the people. The will of the people, the democratic form of elections will be served, and we will not walk away from it. And that's why he's calling for votes to be counted, to be patient and to count the votes so every citizen gets his or her chance to raise their voice. And if that happens, then we will, he's saying we are not going to give up or be bullied. We're going to insist that the people's will, that all power rightfully flows from in the United States, will be served. And that's where I think we are. And that's exactly what I'm trusting in.
Great. Tom Steyer, great to have you on the program. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts. We wish you all the best and hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.